Please step away from the vehicle now.
Is there a problem?
Officer, where did you get that uniform?
I'm a Navy SEAL. I just came from a ceremony.
You got ID?
Yes, but what am I being detained for?
Hands on the car. Don't argue.
That was the moment everything changed, because by sunrise, Kessler would be off duty, federal officials would be demanding evidence preservation, the sheriff's office would be in damage control, and the first steps of a $15 million civil rights lawsuit would already be underway. But under those lights, on that hot roadside lot in Briar Glen County, Kessler still believed he owned the night. Briar Glen was the kind of county that looked ordinary until you stayed long enough to see how power really moved. There was a courthouse with cracked columns, a sheriff's office with old habits, and a culture built on quick judgments. People called it tradition. What it often meant was this: if the wrong person decided you didn't belong, facts stopped mattering. Kessler had been shaped perfectly by that world. 36 years old, thick-necked, gym-built, with the confidence of a man who had spent too many years being backed up no matter what he did. His father had political connections. Chief Darnell Pike trusted him because Kessler knew how to make ugly things sound procedural. A shove became non-compliance. A false accusation became officer safety. A lie became a report. He especially liked testing men he thought should break in front of him and didn't. Especially black men who stayed calm. The man at the pump was Adrian Vale, Petty Officer First Class Adrian Vale, though he almost never led with rank. He had grown up not far from Briar Glen, raised by a mother named Denise, who had spent decades as a school counselor, and a father who worked long nights fixing generators and HVAC systems until stress took more from him than age did. Adrian had been the kind of kid adults trusted without needing a reason. Quiet, reliable, solid. He joined the military young, pushed himself through one of the hardest pipelines in the service, and came back leaner, quieter, and even more disciplined than before. He was respected not because he advertised what he'd done, but because he didn't. That Thursday had already been brutal. He had taken emergency leave to drive his mother to a specialist in Raleigh for surgery the next morning after doctors found a mass on one lung. The outlook was hopeful, but the family was scared. Adrian had been on the road most of the day, running on caffeine, duty, and the need to be there for her. In the truck behind him sat a small duffel bag. In the center console were travel orders. In the glove box was a legal, secured sidearm because procedure was instinct to him. He stopped at the Red Maple Fuel Mart because the tank was low. Nothing more, no argument, no scene, just gas, coffee, and the final stretch of a long drive. Inside the store, the air conditioner rattled like it was losing a fight. 19-year-old cashier Maya Alvarez barely glanced up at first, but she noticed little things. The way Adrian held the door for another customer. The way he said, "Yes, ma'am," when she asked if he wanted a receipt. The exhaustion in his face. The kind that came from pressure, not laziness. He bought black coffee and 2 protein bars, paid for gas, and went back outside. A few minutes later, a white Dodge Charger rolled in crooked near the air pump. Behind the wheel was Travis Borden, a local contractor with too much attitude and enough alcohol in his system to make him bolder than he should have been. He stared too long at Adrian's truck, then at Adrian himself. "You from around here?" Travis asked. Adrian didn't take the bait. "Passing through," Travis smirked. "Funny, you don't look like you're just passing through." Adrian ignored him, but some men hear silence as disrespect. Travis stepped away, made a phone call, and leaned against his car like he was waiting for a show. 3 minutes later, Kessler arrived. No sirens, no urgency, just appetite. "What's going on?" he asked, though his eyes never really left Adrian. Travis answered first. "Guys acting weird, reaching around in the truck, might be armed." Adrian turned slowly, keeping his hands visible. "Officer, I'm fueling up. I informed you there is a legally secured firearm in the glove box. I have identification." Kessler locked onto one word: firearm. "Step away from the vehicle." Adrian did. "Hands on the hood." He complied. "Spread your feet." He complied again. Maya was now watching through the glass. The woman with the minivan had fully stopped pumping. The station camera rotated overhead. Kessler patted Adrian down, pulled out his wallet, and found the military ID. He looked at it, then at Adrian, then back at the card. "What is this?" "My identification." "You think I'm stupid?" "No, sir. Don't sir me like that." It wasn't confusion. It was offense. Kessler started firing questions. Rank, station, command. Adrian answered everyone cleanly. The more accurate he was, the angrier Kessler got. Because fear would have satisfied him. Hesitation would have satisfied him. But composure from someone he had already decided was beneath him, that he couldn't stand. "You got fake credentials, a weapon, and attitude," Kessler said. Adrian kept his voice low. "I have none of those things except the credential. And it isn't fake. That sentence broke the last of Kessler's restraint. He slammed Adrian into the hood again. Adrian shifted on instinct from the impact, and Kessler shouted the phrase, "Bad officers love most." "Stop resisting." A second deputy, Eli Carver, arrived just in time to see Adrian pinned against the truck. "He resisting?" Carver asked. "He's about to," Kessler said. Adrian understood instantly what game he was trapped in. If he fought back, he would become the story they were already writing. If he stayed still, he might at least preserve the truth long enough for it to matter. So he stayed still. Kessler twisted his arm high behind his back. Adrian's face tightened. "You are injuring me," he said. "Good," Kessler replied. That was when the woman with the minivan started recording. That was when Maya whispered, "Oh my God." That was when Sophia Rahman, the gas station owner's daughter, came out from the back room with her own phone already raised. Kessler, full of ego and audience, kept going. He dragged Adrian backward, kicked his feet apart, and forced him to his knees on the stained concrete. Adrian's shirt rode up just enough to reveal old scars along his side and shoulder. Travis Borden laughed under his breath. Kessler leaned low and muttered, thinking the cameras wouldn't catch it. "Where I'm from, guys like you don't drive trucks like this with IDs like that unless you stole one." Sophia heard it, Maya heard enough, and Eli Carver heard it too. By the time Adrian was shoved into the back of the cruiser, he had already been verbally accused of resisting detention, unlawful possession of a weapon, and impersonating military personnel. 3 accusations, all false, all useful. Then he saw something worse than the cuffs digging into his wrists. His phone sitting on the front seat of Kessler's cruiser, vibrating. His mother was calling. He couldn't answer. At the Briar Glen Sheriff's Office, the booking room was all bleach, fluorescent light, and stale coffee. Kessler began writing the report before Adrian had even finished being photographed. Subject became verbally aggressive. Lie. Subject made repeated movements toward vehicle. Lie. Subject refused clear commands. Lie. Subject presented identification believed to be fraudulent. Lie. Chief Darnell Pike looked over the page and asked the only thing he cared about. "Any witnesses on our side?" Kessler shrugged. "A local called it in." Pike nodded. "Good enough." Adrian stood there with red cuffs marks on his wrists and a bruise forming on his cheek. "I am requesting counsel," he said, "and I am requesting that my command be notified immediately." Pike didn't even look up. "You can request whatever you want." Adrian repeated it. Pike smiled without warmth. "And I'm hearing it for the record." What Pike didn't understand yet was that Adrian was not someone who could quietly disappear for a night. At 11:06 p.m., Adrian missed a required travel check-in. At 11:18, Denise called again. At 11:23, a duty officer at Coastal Command tried Adrian's phone. No answer. At 11:31, Commander Elise Warren saw the missed status contact and knew something was wrong. Adrian was not sloppy. He was not casual with procedure. By 11:42, Warren's office had reached Adrian's emergency contact, his younger sister Camille, who was sitting in a hospital waiting room, trying to keep their mother calm before surgery. Denise kept asking where Adrian was. Camille kept lying and saying traffic because the truth would have terrified her mother before dawn. At 11:49, Commander Warren called the sheriff's office directly. She identified herself and asked for confirmation that Adrian Vale was in custody. The deputy at the desk looked to Pike, who said, "Tell them he's being processed." Warren's voice sharpened. "On what charge?" "Can't discuss an active matter. This is an active duty service member under travel orders." Then came the mistake that turned the local arrest into a national problem. Then maybe he should have acted like it. Click. They hung up on her. While Pike and Kessler were still acting like they controlled the story had already started escaping them. The first video hit social media shortly after midnight. It was short and shaky, but clear enough to show Adrian with his hands on the hood, and clear enough to hear him say, "I'm complying." Local pages picked it up, then regional ones. Reporter Tessa Reed messaged Sophia Rahman for the full clip. Maya Alvarez found the printed receipt showing Adrian had simply bought coffee and gas before the stop. Fareed Rahman, Sophia's father, quietly copied the station surveillance footage because he didn't trust the sheriff's office not to lose it. Inside the station, Deputy Carver asked Kessler if the report should mention Adrian had voluntarily disclosed the firearm before being searched. Kessler stared at him. "You want to teach me my job?" Carver backed up. "No, sir." "Then write what happened." Carver hesitated. "What happened or what goes in the report?" Kessler stepped close. "Around here, those are the same thing. Maybe they had been, but not anymore." In the holding cell, Adrian finally sat down. The adrenaline wore off and the ache moved in. Shoulder, ribs, jaw, wrists. He closed his eyes to control the anger. Years earlier, when he was 14, he had watched his father get slammed against a work van by deputies over a simple mix-up. They had the wrong man, and one of them laughed it off when they realized it. Adrian never forgot what his father told him later that night. Some people don't need facts, they just need permission. Never give them your balance too. So Adrian held on to balance as long as he could. At 1:07 a.m., he asked for a phone call. Denied. At 1:19, he asked again. Denied. At 1:31, he said through the bars, "My mother is waiting for surgery. Let me call her." No one answered. Just footsteps fading away. Across town, Camille sat in the hospital chair with her mother only hours from being taken into surgery, staring at unread messages and trying not to break. By 1:40 a.m., Commander Warren had stopped asking politely. Naval Legal Counsel was contacted. Investigative Command was contacted. A federal liaison got involved. At 2:03 a.m., Chief Pike received a call ordering immediate preservation of all body cam, dash cam, dispatch, and booking footage. Pike tried to sound unimpressed. "We have procedures." The answer came back cold. "You do now." That was the moment he should have backed down. Instead, he chose protection. He told Kessler to get the narrative straight. When bad systems get scared, they don't confess. They commit. At 2:24, Tessa Reed published the first careful article. Then a dispatcher named Naomi Wells replayed the original call from Travis Borden and heard the detail that would blow the whole thing open. Travis had not called in a threat. He had called in a guy in a truck who doesn't look right. No weapon, no violence, no crime. Only after Kessler arrived did the language shift into armed and non-compliant. Naomi understood exactly what she was hearing. At 2:37, she anonymously sent the dispatch audio to Tessa with one line, "Start with the dispatch." That audio, paired with the surveillance footage, destroyed the lie. The video showed Adrian leaving the store with coffee, pumping gas, never opening the glove box, never acting aggressively, never threatening anyone. It showed Kessler shove him, while Adrian was already complying. By 3:31 a.m., Commander Warren was driving into Briar Glen with Lieutenant Mara Sloan from Military Legal Affairs. At 3:46, Pike got a call from the State Attorney General's office. At 3:58, Denise Vale was wheeled toward pre-op, asking softly if Adrian had made it. Camille squeezed her hand and lied one more time. "He's on his way." At 4:07, Adrian was pulled into an interview room. Pike sat across from him. Kessler stood in the corner. Pike tried one last time to make Adrian feel small. "You want this to calm down. Cooperate." Adrian looked at him through the swelling and said, "I have cooperated since the moment he touched me." Pike called Adrian's behavior concerning. Adrian answered, "No, his behavior was criminal." Kessler laughed. "You think that card makes you untouchable?" Adrian turned to him and said the strongest line in the room. "No, I think the law should." Then a deputy opened the door, pale. "Chief, there are federal people here, and media outside." That was the end of Briar Glen's control over the story. Commander Elise Warren entered with Lieutenant Sloan carrying a thick folder of records. Warren didn't sit. "Where is Petty Officer Vale?" Pike tried to posture. "This is a county matter." Warren stepped closer. "Not anymore." Outside, dawn was turning the sky gray. News vans were parked across the street. Sophia and Farid Rahman were outside. Maya had shown up too, still carrying the receipt from the night before. Inside, Warren demanded Adrian's release pending review. Pike resisted until Sloan placed the evidence on the table. Travel orders, command verification, a still image from the surveillance footage showing Adrian pinned to the hood with both hands visible, and the dispatch transcript proving the original call had reported no crime at all. Pike started talking about confusion. Warren cut him off. "No, there was abuse." Kessler tried to hide behind judgment call. Warren shut him down instantly. A judgment call is not a license for bias, falsified reporting, or assault. Then Adrian was brought out. Warren looked at the bruise under his eye and asked, "Are you able to speak?" "Yes, ma'am." "Do you need medical attention?" "Yes, ma'am." "Do you want to make a statement?" Adrian answered without emotion. "I want every camera at that station preserved. I want every report from tonight pulled. I want my phone back, and I want to call my mother before surgery." At 5:02 a.m., Adrian finally reached Camille. Denise was already in pre-op and couldn't come to the phone. Camille heard his voice and started crying before she could stop herself. "You okay?" Adrian asked. "I'm okay," she lied. "Is Mom scared?" Camille looked through the glass at Denise lying beneath warm blankets and whispered, "She's asking for you." Adrian closed his eyes. "Tell her I'm coming." By 5:27, the full story went live. Surveillance footage, dispatch audio, witnesses, military confirmation. The article didn't need outrage. The facts were enough. By 6:10, statewide outlets had picked it up. By 6:43, a federal civil rights attorney named Marisol Grant was involved. By 7:15, Kessler was placed on administrative leave. By 7:22, another clip surfaced. Kessler, after the arrest, muttering, "I don't care what card he flashes, around here they learn." That line buried him. Adrian made it to the hospital just after Denise was taken into surgery. He sat outside in borrowed scrubs because his shirt had been collected as evidence. His knuckles were swollen. There was dried blood on one sleeve. Camille sat beside him and cried openly now. Adrian stared ahead for a long moment before saying the one thing that captured the whole night. "I was calm. I did everything right." Camille looked at him and answered, "That's exactly why they hated it." The months that followed exposed more than a single false arrest. Marisol Grant built a case not only against Kessler, but against Briar Glen County, Chief Pike, and the culture that allowed men like them to flourish. Old complaints resurfaced, missing footage, suspicious report patterns, prior resisting charges with no supporting video. Naomi Wells gave a formal statement. Eli Carver eventually admitted Adrian had been compliant before force was used. Discovery revealed internal texts, slurs, and one message from Pike to Kessler saying, "Don't worry about complaints. I'll handle the paper." That ended Pike. He resigned before hearings began. Kessler held on longer, claiming fear and blaming politics. But when every camera says the same thing, fear stops sounding believable. He was fired, charged, and personally named in the lawsuit. Travis Borden lost contracts after it came out. He had made the call and later bragged about it in a bar. Then came the number that made the whole state stop: $15 million. Compensation for unlawful detention, fabricated charges, emotional distress, physical harm, reputational damage, and the institutional misconduct underneath it all. Some locals said it was too much, but those people had never sat in a holding cell after doing everything right. They had never begged for one phone call while their mother waited for surgery. They had never watched themselves turned into somebody else's lie. The settlement changed more than bank accounts. New evidence retention rules, independent oversight, department restructuring, resignations at the top. A district attorney later voted out after defending the arrest too early. Careers ended not because one ugly night happened, but because one ugly night exposed a pattern. Adrian never tried to become famous from any of it. At the press conference announcing the settlement, he stood in a dark suit looking exactly like the kind of man power had underestimated from the beginning. Marisol spoke. Commander Warren spoke. Then Adrian stepped up to the podium. "What happened to me was illegal," he said. "But more than that, it was familiar. Not because I expected it, because too many people recognized it immediately." Then he said the line that stuck with everyone who heard it. "I was trained to stay calm in dangerous places. What I was not prepared for was needing that training at home." Behind him, Denise sat healthier now, surgery behind her, one hand over her mouth. Later, in a hallway away from the cameras, she held him close and whispered, "I did not raise you to survive war, just to be humiliated buying coffee." That was when he finally let some of the grief out. Adrian later used part of the settlement to help fund wrongful arrest defense work in rural counties and scholarships for young people from communities that are too often told to stay quiet. Sophia received one of the first grants. Maya got help finishing school. Naomi Wells left dispatch and never regretted telling the truth. Briar Glen Sheriff's Office kept the same building, the same front sign, the same parking lot. But the air inside changed. Accountability does that. It changes the temperature of a room. As for Wade Kessler, the last anyone cared to mention him, he was seen alone in a roadside diner in another county, shoulders folded in, cap low, no badge, no swagger, no audience. Just consequences. On that night at the gas station, he thought he was teaching Adrian Vale a lesson. He was. Just not the lesson he intended. He taught a county what happens when arrogance collides with cameras, witnesses, and evidence. He taught a department what happens when a man too disciplined to become their lie survives long enough for truth to catch up. The coffee dried, the bruises faded, the footage remained, and the night they tried to make Adrian Vale look small under the gas station lights became the exact night an entire system got dragged into the open.